Right, another very exciting episode of The Real Deal, the second one of the day. So, hope everyone's tuning into this one as well. It's a very special one as well. So, let's go. All right, welcome to the second episode of the day of The Real Deal. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Again, glad to be back with another great episode. You can find all the shows, as I said, on all podcasts and social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can find the show on BS3 Network, BS3 TV, Roku channel, and Spotify, Apple, like I said, wherever you get podcasts, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can download, you can find that. So I'm very excited to have my next guest. We was just talking about, we met at one of Rachel Tootsie Pop's Huddle Up show, Unwind, and we connected from there. It was just bringing a community of people, content creators, podcasters together, just to talk fantasy football and life. But I have Jim Coventry. This guy has a bio, so I'm going to read this to the 2022 FSWA Football Writer of the Year finalist. I mean, that's a big thing right there. Rotowire NFL, SiriusXM Fantasy host, also Kings Classic Fantasy Football 2021 champ. I'm sure he wants to get that title again very soon. So, Jim, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. He's big in fantasy football community. So thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Super excited to be here, Courtney. Very, very blessed to be with you, and great to talk football today.
Yes, I'm excited to have you on. Like I said, we met at one of Rachel Tootsie Pop's Huddle Up. She's having another one, I think, next week. So I'm there as well. But it was just, like I said, it was just meeting new people in this space. As you said, I know you've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing fantasy football for a long time as well. So I really appreciate it and blessed to have you on the show as well. So let's get right into it though. Talk about a little bit of how you got started, your love of sports in general, where that come from, the passion of sports and just in fantasy football in general.
Yeah, I'm old. I was born in 1965, so I would watch like regular standard definition television, as many games as I could watch, be it football, be it baseball, but there definitely wasn't the national coverage. But as a kid, I was always not like a local team guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would live in Chicago. I wasn't a Bears guy. Whatever teams were on, I liked football. I liked as many teams as I could. And so that fire was there early. And then as you move forward into your adult years and fantasy football, I started in 1994. And I know maybe some people listening weren't born then. I get that. We would use newspapers for box scores, and we would use things like fax machines to send league reports. It was crazy, but it was passionate. But the one thing was, there was not a lot of information out there. So a fantasy player who could figure some things out, be a little more dialed in, aggressively seek out information, you had a massive, massive advantage on the field. And obviously that advantage is no longer there. There are thousands and thousands of great analysts, and there's information all over the place. But how did I get into this? So what happened was I met the woman who's now my wife, and she realized I watch football all day on Sundays. And to her, she's like, you got to make money if you're going to do that. So I fortunately, back in 1996, had won one of those national contests, single entry, won that. So I knew a little bit about football, and I was an English teacher by trade. I'm retired now, and I could write a little bit. So I reached out. And John Hansen of Fantasy Guru, I told him I'll write for free for a year. I just want to get some stuff, on, my profile, portfolio. And he was gracious enough to let me do that. So I wrote there for a year. At the end of the year, I reached back out to him, and he didn't get the email for a long while. And by the time I got back to him, I was like, I probably thought it wasn't going to work. So I ended up working for Draft Sharks, Lenny Papano, Jared Smola, Matt Shelf, worked there for about 8 years. And that was phenomenal. Did that while I was teaching, like a lot of us in the industry do a job and then do fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up with the best in the business when you're working another career. But so you have to work harder and harder with the little time you have. And then in 2016, it was kind of time to move. Things were just going in different directions. And I ended up with Rotowire. And what an amazing blessing that was. The first year in, Rotowire asked me if I would, host on the SiriusXM show. I'm like, oh my gosh, what an amazing platform.
Yeah.
Right place, right time. And for whatever reason, they chose to grace me with that opportunity. And so that really kind of took me off in the industry, because a lot of people have that channel. A lot of people seek out fantasy football. And, my whole thing, Courtney, is don't care about what I say. I try to put a lot into the why just to get people to think. And if you like the why, then roll with it. If not, I don't have a monopoly on the truth. We got a lot of smart people out there, but I'll give you what I've got. And that platform has helped me to kind of move that.
I love that. And I mean, so much unpacked there, because you said you started with, I could relate, newspapers, and that's where the stats are coming out on the USA Today or your local paper or something like that. And I just remember in high school when I was in high school and when fantasy football was just starting, and said in the 90s, it started before it, but in the 90s it really was blowing up, and thinking, okay, how do I get into this? Because I love football. I love watching it every Sunday and Monday. And at that time, it was only Sunday, Monday, it wasn't Thursday. So at that time,
Right.
It was Sunday and Monday night football. How can I? I love the statistics. I love, reading these things. And now you can get in competition with other people, your friends or whatever in the industry. Oh, okay, let's do it. And as you said, sometimes you had to call networks just to get the stats too. I remember doing that too. So I could definitely relate to that. But as you said, it's evolved so much, because there's so much content now, and a lot of great, talented people that does it. What do you think of the shift of what it is from back then in the 90s to what it is today?
Really, it's the instant news. And a lot of people are so used to that for the last 10 or so years. But instantly, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, others before them, the late John Clayton,
Yes.
There were people always getting information out there fast through social media or through the networks. And so now, if you're keeping on it regularly, you're always having a flow of information. And that's 12 months a year.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing about it, right? You mentioned like how the evolution. So the one thing I want to tell people is, if you're following different analysts, vary your portfolio up. There are some great stats people out there. There are some great people that understand the game inside and out.
Yeah.
Find people with different takes. Don't find just somebody that does it exactly the way you do. Listen to a couple others as well. The only shows I really listen to now are shows that just break down the NFL, like the Athletics podcast, sometimes the Ringers podcast. They talk about real on the field football trends in the game. Like you, we all have access to the numbers. My whole thing is, what do we do with those numbers? The numbers are cool, but I want to know how the player fits into the offense. What new offensive scheme and systems are coming around the pipe? I want to integrate those numbers and make those about the real game that is played by human beings. The human beings are not numbers. They produce numbers, but those numbers are often predicated on a lot of different factors. So the numbers are great, and get yourself a numbers person, but also find people that are going to dig in and try to give you a full picture. And I think with so many great people out there, you can find that blend of analysts that make you the happiest with your fantasy experience.
Yeah, exactly. You said the evolution, and you said going from newspaper and even magazines. I remember just buying. I still buy magazines too, and it's I don't know. I just like the physical copy of it, and yeah, sometimes you bring a magazine to get one early, so it feels. And some people will say, well, it feels outdated because by end of August things have changed. But I'm saying, but it's still that you said information of really breaking it down, that doesn't change because you still need the information. You have the statistics, which is great, but you need the information. And you're right. There's so many great podcasts. There's so many great analysts in this industry, and but you're right. I think you have to really limit it because it could be overload too. It could be information overload, just like anything else, as well. So, and you talk about like there's so many different leagues too. You have redraft, you have best ball, you have IDP, you have all these things. Talk about that change too. Before it was just a straight. If you played on Yahoo, you played on, ESPN came a little later with their fantasy football, but Yahoo was one of the first ones that you could actually sign up for, and you draft, and you had that team. But now there's so many different leagues, so many different rules and things like that. Talk about that change too.
Human beings throughout history have been very creative, right?
Right.
We find new ways to do things, make it more interesting, more exciting. And I think that's just what it is. I think that people loved the reality of fantasy football and that I could put a team together. I can manage a team and set my lineup. I can create wins and losses. And then people realize, oh, there are different ways we could take this. We could have bigger leagues, tougher competition. We could expand the rosters. Like you said, we can go dynasty leagues. We could go super flex leagues. There are all these different areas in which it can make the game more real to the people who play. You mentioned best ball. That is beautiful for people that want to draft a lot, but don't have the lifetime bandwidth to be able to set all these lineups.
Right.
You could have 50 teams in best ball and not set a single lineup. And so you can not be overloaded during the season. But we love to draft, that big rush of a draft, and then just seeing different strategies and how we stack up. So like you said, I followed up. It's the creativity of people. And there's probably a bigger move that this is going to have down the road, because I don't think we're anywhere near stopped.
No. There's going to be another new, I'm sure, another new league or another new way how you can play Facebook, because you did DFS. You have that side of it as well, and what's the way sports betting has been too has evolved with fantasy football, fantasy sports in general. It's great to see it, how it evolved from the 90s, even late 80s, early 90s to what it is today. I want to get back into the Rotowire and also, congratulations on your FSWA Football Writer of the Year, being a finalist on that as well. How did that feel to be recognized from that, and talk about a little bit more about the of you joining Rotowire?
It's definitely humbling being nominated for an award like that, especially in the football field, because in football, there are a ton of people that do football, far smaller numbers of baseball and other sports. So to be even mentioned, that blew me away. So humbling. I know there's so many great people out there to do this thing. And so just that recognition, it meant a lot. And it was one of those things that I didn't win the award, and somebody who definitely deserved it won it. And I think that was fantastic. But just to be a finalist, to me, it was like, wow. And it's something I do put on my resume because, somebody somewhere appreciated my work, and it meant a lot. But it's funny, Courtney, it was a writer award, but this whole game is moving toward media. And so what's interesting is I think eventually there's going to be like more media awards than there are going to be writing awards, because I think the number of people who are reading articles every year, I think that's going to get smaller, smaller, and smaller. And the people who watch video, listen to podcasts, I think that's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that's the natural move of that. Anything before I go to Rotowire?
Nope, that's no.
Yeah. So again, with Rotowire is amazing in that they cover every sport, and company's been one of the founding companies, and one of the founding companies, and the leadership team, they just have had a vision, and they've been able to stay relevant for decades, and that's been amazing. And like we talked about a moment ago, they are really moving forward now into the social media and video age as well, because that's where people are. And so we're trying to meet them where they're at. Obviously our subscription service works well, but in terms of what they gave me at Rotowire, I started out the first couple of years, they wanted me to write baseball too. That was tough. Baseball's a grind. Love it.
Yeah, every day.
Grind. Yes. Actually, I think it was 2 years I wrote baseball, and then I begged out. I said, got a family, I was teaching at the time, and we got football, and it was like August was the killer, because back to school and football draft season and baseball. I mean, it was just too much. And they were gracious enough to say, okay, you could just do football and we're good with that. And so in my job, yes, during parts of the season, there's up to 3 articles a week, which is great. But again, most days they have me doing video. We just started a Rotowire fantasy football only YouTube page about a month ago. And I'm like recording like 8 videos a week for them. We have a full-time video editor. That was a blessing because if somebody says my videos look good, I go, oh no, it's not me. It's the video editor.
The editors.
Yes. And I pass that praise on very, very happily. So Rotowire is just doing their best, keeping up with the times. And I think that I really respect that about them. They treat their employees super well. I am definitely blessed. This is a full-time job for me. And because I know there aren't many of those, and just can't say how grateful I am to them for giving me that opportunity and allowing me all these chances to interact with people. And the whole thing is I love people, and so many people have come into my horizon because of this, and it's really become a community. But it's all to Rotowire. Without them, I wouldn't have ever had the audience.
Yeah, and I talk about that too a lot. The community, you brought that out. That's a good point, because I think with this this space, I'll just leave it to this space, the fantasy football space. It is a community. It is, because I see people helping each other out, and for advice, and we can always talk about sit start. Who do we sit? Who we start? And we're looking to try to win. We're looking to beat everybody in our competition, in our leagues, and things like that. But it's all in the industry in itself. I really feel like it is very helpful. It's very community driven, and so I really think that's a big thing about fantasy sports, but particularly fantasy football, is there are people that will help. The ones that are more experienced, if you ask them a question about the industry in itself, they're really there to help you and me, and even put you in the right direction if you're looking for a job or you're looking for something like that. And you said Rotowire's been a long time. I remember buying their magazine too. It was like it's from back then. So it's they're they said still relevant, still on top of its game and evolving, and that's, I think, it's a big thing. So
yeah, like I said, I just can't even restate it enough. But thank you for noticing that. You mentioned the community, and with the community, that is such an important facet. And to go a little further on, there are a lot of people who break in to the industry and they're nervous, like, well, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And I always tell people, I want to say that now with an opportunity, is I tell people there are thousands and thousands of different micro audiences out there. Your audience may end up being 5 people, 500, 5,000, 50,000. But if you do football the way you want to do it and you want to content create, there will be an audience for you, and that audience will find you. And it doesn't matter what the size of the audience is. And there are people out there, and that's really all it is. You're entertaining people, you're informing people, and everybody plays football at a different level. Not everybody needs the most hardcore analyst. There are some people out there that are just entertaining, and that is great, because that's what some people want. They want some football, but they want some entertainment. But there is, again, so many audience. So anybody that's thinking about it, be you, because this community will embrace you. Nobody's going to be like, oh, what are you doing? I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Not too much. And I think that's a big, and that was going to be my next question. Like, what's some of your favorite and least favorite things? It looks like community, or just, you said there's something for everyone when it comes to, content creating, that there might be, you said there might be someone that loves, like you said, the entertainment factor, someone that might love the statistic factor, someone that might just love, like you said, this different things and elements. There's something for everyone. Said from 5 people to 5,000 people. But what's some of your other favorite things about this industry of fantasy football, and some of your least favorite things?
It goes similar to what we said, the friendships I've made. I've been friends with people I would have never known if it weren't for this. And the Fantasy Football Expo out in Canton, Ohio, that'll be in a couple of weeks from now. But I'm part of the Kings Classic with a number of the people I met there. The first year was only the Kings Classic. There were 24 people, 2 leagues, and that was it. And then the Expo started. But the beauty of that was knowing there's an event every year where you can catch up and meet new people. That's a beautiful part of the industry. Bob Lung just, and he wasn't the only one. I know Mike Clay and Brad Evans were a big part of that process, but Bob Lung has basically taken it over and ran in a beautiful way. Visionary with it. And just to know, the favorite part of the industry is that we have an event every year. Many people get there on Thursday. Many people leave on Monday. It's a big weekend. There's parties, there's drafting, there's hanging out. Like I said, you rekindle old friendships, you make new friends. And if you're just open to just seeing people, that could become one of my favorite things in the industry if it isn't already.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the thing. It's I went last year, my first time going to the expo. I'm not going this year, but I went last year, and it was you said it's overwhelming because there's so many people. You get there and it's like, wow. Oh my goodness, I see these people on TV. I see these things on YouTube. And you said it's the parties, and for the the expo, it's the parties, it's the just going to Kane, Ohio itself was
Yes.
tremendous. Go to the Hall of Fame. You go to the actually Hall of Fame exhibit, watching live drafts, watching the Kings Classic. They have the Queens Classic now. That was exciting. You have the round tables, you have all these seminars, you have all these things. There's something for everyone, and you don't have to be. And I think someone asked me. They said, "Do you have to be into fantasy football?" No, you could go in as just a fan of football, or you can just go in and say, "Hey, I'm taking a trip to Canton, Ohio, and go to the Hall of Fame." You can just do that. You want to go to the expo itself usually on Sunday. You can do that. Go for the restaurants. You just go for a little bit of everything. So yeah, I agree. It was a good experience. So
yeah, it's awesome you made it, and every year more people come, and that's
yeah,
it. And like I said, some people won't go every year, and that's fine. It could be expensive, it could be time consuming, but if you can make it, make it.
yeah. And if you wanna go, you said I think the best part is meeting people. That was the best part. Talking about not just fantasy football, but you talk about life. You're talking about family, and then you start getting to know people. And what do you do for in the industry? That I thought that was one of the best experiences to me, was getting to meet a lot of new people and really getting connections with a lot of people too. But there's on the other side, what's some of the least things you like about or you don't like about the industry?
There are very few things I don't like, but I still see there's still a faction of people that don't treat people as equals. I see people that, I still think, unfortunately, there are people that still bash women, and how crazy.
Yes.
We have so many
Yeah.
super intelligent, amazing fantasy analysts who are female, and yet there still are people that will flame their comments and just be jerks about it. Look, there's a million options out there. If you're gonna be like that, just find somebody else. Instead of making somebody miserable, just go where you're happy, and don't make somebody feel bad because they're different gender or whatever the deal is. Seriously, can't we get past that? That's the thing. And again, it's not a huge part of the industry, but it's enough. There's enough people that will come in and just to make people miserable. And then sometimes I think sometimes on social media, a lot of people are just looking to start stuff, and it's not many start troll, and that just why. Football's fun.
Yeah,
Football's fun.
Yes.
You have a different take on an opinion. That's great. I hope it works for you. I hope you win your league. I am wrong like everybody else.
Yeah.
And, I'll give you my reasoning, but it doesn't mean it's right. So, just stop bashing people.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, you said it's football. It's fantasy football. It's fantasy. That's what fantasy football. Like we enjoy doing this, and like you said, that some people they take it so serious. As you said, you do picks, analyze, and things like that. It's opinion based. But you're just basing it on factual things, but it's still an opinion, because at the end of the day, you're making decisions of who to play, who to start, who to sit, and then some people take it as gospel. They really do. Then they get upset when, oh, this player got hurt. Why did you pick this player? Yeah, I don't like that either. And then they said the other side of bashing the women in this industry. I think I really don't like that at all. And he said it's not for everyone and everything. So he said you can turn, you can do. There's all these different options, and just like I said, there's so many incredible women, and how much that's grown in this industry, that are doing a lot of big things, and it's give them the respect and that they deserve, and everything too. If you don't like it, you could always move on too. So nothing wrong with that either. So. I agree. 100% agree on that. It's yeah, that's some of the things I dislike too about it, but that's in life. So,
Right.
yeah. So, but yeah. All right. I want to get into some strategies of what when do you usually when football season? Someone asked you when the football season ends, Super Bowl. Do you take a little bit of break from content, or do you like start like right away? I know the draft comes up and free agency and things like that, like immediately. But do you take like a little bit of a hiatus and a break?
I think 1 to 2 weeks after the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
probably gonna take a vacation week in there. And then
Yeah.
there's probably a week where maybe though I'm not like working as crazy hard as I might. But after that, like you said, this is year round.
Yeah.
And so realistically, free agency starts less than a month or around a month after the Super Bowl.
Right.
So you've really got to chop away at that. Team needs whom, because obviously part of the job is saying, trying to extrapolate. We're always trying to predict the future. So we talk about what
Yeah.
team needs are. We break down the free agents, kind of look at them specifically where they're at in their career, what fits they might have. So it's a lot of work to get ready. And then once that rush hits, and then you break it down in real time, then all of a sudden now you got to get ready for the draft, because I watch so much NFL football. Now I got to watch college cut-ups of players after free agency, and I got a
Yeah.
good month and a half to get profiles on every relevant rookie coming out.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that's done, now we're getting ready to write player profiles. So my goal now that this is all I do for a living, I will probably by the end of May, I'll have over 400 pages of player notes that I
Mm.
have to go with.
Yeah.
And because I'm going to be on a lot of shows and people are going to ask questions from all over. So I want to be very well versed in every player. The profiles go on probably 375 players roughly. But I want to be very well versed in every one of them. And the more you talk about them, the less you need your notes and the more you're
Yeah.
able to just talk freely about them. But so, yes. And then obviously once we get to June, we're drafting. We're drafting more
Yeah.
because we have to understand what drafts look like. Yes, there's ADP numbers, but you want to be in the flow of drafts. And then July hits, and then really people start pouring in for
Yeah.
content, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
It is, and then that's what it is. You said you take a little bit of a break, and then NFL free agency, NFL movements, the player movements, and then the draft, and in May, and it's like, wow, here comes training camp, June, July, drafts. It's a year round thing industry. It is content, and people are clamoring for it. By May, they're waiting and itching that at that moment. It's like, when are these the drafts, the mock drafts and things like that? Then you have the Scott Fish Bowl that comes up so quickly. We're in that, and so yeah, it's. But then you start getting well versed in a lot of those things. By the time the season started, then you're just hitting the ground running. August, you're hitting the ground running. For sure. I want to ask you about you said the Kings Classic. I know you're looking for your itch. You've been the 2021 champ. I know you're itching to get that 2024 and 2025. That I'm sure you're ready. How are you preparing for that the Kings Classic?
The Kings Classic Reminder is the Jim Brown division, and I'll leave out some names, not on purpose, but I'll just like the note. We got Bob Harrison there, many years, Mike Klaesner, Dave Richard of CBS been there. It's a really Howard Bender's often been in there, and again, I'm going to leave out names. Jeff Ratcliffe's in there. It's crazy the level of competition, and there are no sleepers. And that the word sleeper's kind of gone anyway. But if you think you had a player that you like, yeah, I'm going to get an edge on the field. There's 4 other people at that table that have that
Yeah.
same player pigeonhole.
Right.
So whether that player gets to you in the draft, it's another story. And it's 14 teams. And the more teams you add, obviously the player pool dries up in a hurry.
Quickly. Yes.
And then the Kings Classic, the regular lineup, 1 quarterback, because basically there's not enough 2 quarterback leagues out there. We kind of pushed this out to the industry to look at the drafts, but we do 3 flex positions in addition to 3 receivers, 2 running backs. So the team has to be really, really deep. And obviously with 14 people in a deep roster, it is really difficult to put together what you would think is a decent team. I don't think anybody walks out of draft day saying, yep, I got me a team here. Nope. Yeah. Everybody has like multiple holes on their team, and it's tough. And the one year I won, Courtney, I was so excited. There are 2 types. We do 2 drafts. We do a snake draft, and then we do an auction draft. And it was 2021, and it worked out. It couldn't have worked out better for me. It was one of those years, a lot more hits than misses. We had that one golden year, and that was the big one. And the thing that made me happiest though was I had most total points, I had the best record, and then I won. So it was a triple crown. And to me, like, it's cool if you win and you sneak into the 6th seed and you won, and it's great. But that year to have had that one against those individuals, that was really something that I was very happy about, and don't know if I could ever do that again. But the fact I did it once, I was so excited and so happy that happened.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I'm glad you brought that up. You said that the most total points, the best record, and you won the whole thing. Sometimes you have both. You have the most points and the best record. Yet you're the target. You're the number 1 seed, and then you don't win. Because I do we have our podcast league. We've done it every year with a lot of some of the podcasts, some of the big experts, and I've had the best record the last 3 years, 2-3 years, but I've got to the finals twice, and I haven't won. Last year was the closest I've got, and the closest I got, best record, total points, and everybody's like, is he going to get over that hump? So now I got to get over the hump. I think this year, and then I think to myself, I don't need to be have the best record, but it's, you know how it is. You're in competition mode. You can't help yourself. You're like, I got to do this. I have to still have the best record, still have number 1 seed, and still have the most total points. And I think I gotta win now. So as you said, gotta get that triple crown. Gotta win it. You know, so that's the goal this year, is to still they say, oh, you're great regular season, but when you get to the playoffs and finals, you just can't seal the deal. So that's been the monkey. I gotta get that monkey off my back in the league. But that is great. As you said, it's like heavy hitters in the Kings Classic, and I'm sure, like you say, when you get on top, it's like, wow, I can't believe I beat everybody in this in that league. So I don't want to give you you to give up too much of your strategies or anything like that, because, you know, people listening and everything too. But what would you say to someone that wants to get into fantasy football? Like, what type of strategy? I know it all depends on the league and what type of league they're doing and things like that, but what would you say on that? Like, if someone wants to get into this and really try to win?
Yes, and with strategy, I give it all away because that's my job. My job is to give, because that's what they want me to do. They want me to share it, so maybe others might consider it, and if they like it, they might use it. So yeah, I have no problems with my strategy. And the other thing is, with the room of people I draft with, nobody cares. None of those people in that room care what my opinions, because they have their own. They work just as hard as I did. So they're not going to say, well, Jim wants this guy. No, they don't care. They're like, that bum. So it's like, so that's all fine. So my strategy this year is, so first of all, with running backs, there's a couple different approaches that I'm using depending where in, let's just use 12 teams as a standard. If I'm drafting in the first half of the first round, I want to use what we call the hero running back approach. And that's going to be one running back that's a superstar. So for me, it's either going to be, obviously, if you have the 101, it's McCaffrey. If you're in the top 6, you may be able to get either Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson, likely. And then if I'm going to take one of those running backs up, I'm not going to prioritize getting my second running back until much later. I'm going to cobble together 3 or 4 later running backs and hoping that one of them emerges as my running back too, or I can rotate them. Because if I drafted that high investment in the number 1 running back, I want to pound wide receivers and have that high scoring floor with solid ceiling as well. So that's the one way. The other running back strategy I use is, if I don't get one of those hero running backs, then what I want to do is, I have a nice group of running backs between rounds 4 and 7 that there are a number of them I'm happy getting. And so I'll take 2 mid-range running backs. It could be Aaron Jones. It could be Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson. They all have question marks. Some have age, but James Conner is always in that bucket, although he misses time. So if I don't get the top one, I'm going to get 2 players that I feel can contribute. So those are the 2 ways I approach running back. I can, with the receivers, like I said earlier, the more you can get early, the better. I do think that receivers give you, if you get the right ones that you're looking at, you can get a high floor, and you have potential for a big ceiling. But these are the players that can often carry your team if you have a good group of 3 or 4 of them. And then you take some lottery tickets. My lottery tickets late, I often like receivers. Like this year, Michael Wilson, like bad quarterback play early in the year. He had a bunch of 50-yard games. Last 2 games of Kyler Murray was great. Wan'Dale Robinson is like almost undrafted yet. After I think he healed from his injury like week 14 last year from the ACL from the prior year, and he really finished strong. There are players late. Jermaine Burton of the Bengals. Not sure he's certainly going to win the number 3 role, but to be in that offense. So I'm targeting those receivers later. Then the quarterback strategy is this. It's great if you want to take one of the big 3. It's totally great, but there's an opportunity cost there. If you're taking one of those top quarterbacks, you are missing out on running backs and receivers. And some people are fine with that, and that's great. I'm waiting a bit. I'm good if I get Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow. They go anywhere like quarterback 7 to 10, that group goes. And so I have a range of them, but I don't want to pay that premium freight. I think those quarterbacks can keep me competitive enough. Do they have the upside of Allen or Hurts or Mahomes? No, but the floor is good, and there is potential for ceiling in those players.
Yeah.
And then last one is tight end. So tight end, usually we used to have the tight ends go early, like Kelsey would go in the first round, because in the prior 4 years, on average, you were getting a 60-point PPR edge from the tight end 1 to the tight end 2. The tight end 3 was another 40 points down. So the edge was so big. This year, let's go to last year. There were, Sam Laporta may have been the tight end 1, but there were 6 tight ends within 30 PPR points. They were all bunched in. So somebody may have been number 1, but it wasn't enough to say any of the 6 are great. And this year in drafts, that's how I'm viewing it. Let somebody take the first 1 or 2 off the board. And I want to get one of the top 6 if I can. But if I can't, and I miss out on all of them, people are sleeping on Pat Freiermuth. They're worried about Arthur Smith. But the thing is, they see Kyle Pitts. They go, well, Kyle Pitts was terrible on him. Jonnu Smith had 582 yards last year. There were like 140 tight end targets. And realistically, Kyle Pitts just uses a deep threat. And with bad quarterbacks, that was never going to work. But Freiermuth is like, so he's your fail safe. So that's kind of my strategy by positions.
I love that. I love it. And, positions, especially like first round, that's always we always talk about first round. What's the strategy? Is it this year? Is it because maybe back then it was always running back premium, running back heavy,
right?
First round. That was like, those ages where the dual running backs, it was like running back, right. And it was like, oh, we can never draft a receiver unless it's like late in the first round. Nowadays, it's changed. It was receiver for a while. It was like that was it. The first 2-3 picks were receiver. Now it's kind of a split because he said, I think now McCaffrey has agreed. I think McCaffrey has got back to being the number 1. And now is he clear cut number 1? Probably, I would say 90%. Yeah, 85, 90%, because someone might go CeeDee Lamb, someone might go Tyreek Hill or other Jamar Chase. Someone might go that route. But last year it was Justin Jefferson. He was a can't miss number 1 pick, or someone go Breece Hall number 1 now. And you're right. I like that. I like that strategy that you said of, if you can't get those 3 running backs, okay, now you can go receiver. Like last year, my draft, it was a 10-league team, 10-league draft. And it was, I think I had the 7th or 8th pick. Running backs were going, but Tyreek Hill was right there. So I said, oh, okay. Tyreek Hill falls right to me at 8th. I'm going to get Tyreek Hill. Come back around, A.J. Brown's there. It's like, I should stack these 2. I'll just stack these 2. So I stacked Tyreek and A.J. Brown. And then it came back around. I think I got Jahmyr Gibbs. I picked Hurts, I think, fourth round, I believe, if I remember. So, so my top 4 was, and I rolled that all the way to the championship. So it's all, like I said, it's all about strategy, how things fall, and everything too. But you brought up Freiermuth. I thought was interesting because he has now receivers, or he has quarterbacks, like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Whoever's going to start, they're going to probably look for their tight end. That's just the premium. So Freiermuth is falling. I was going to ask you like a couple sleepers in each position. Who do you think is a sleeper? And you said Freiermuth is definitely one at tight end, but as quarterback sleeper and running back sleeper.
And then another tight end later, Luke Musgrave, like tight end 17 off the right. If you need a second tight end, that's not a bad idea.
Right.
Quarterback sleepers are kind of tough because they kind of get locked in on value. There's only a few of them. I do think like the top 12, they belong where they're at. And I don't think there's any surprise there. I think Kirk Cousins going at quarterback 18, I think that he is that value quarterback who could be a top 12 guy. They bring in Zach Robinson over in Atlanta to run the offense. He was with Sean McVay, so that system comes in. But remember, Kirk Cousins ran a similar offense with Kevin O'Connell, so he's learning it instantaneously. The Achilles, I'm not worried. That saps explosiveness. Well, Cousins was never explosive.
He could never move, right? Yeah.
So and he's got Pitts, he's got London, and even the speed of Darnell Mooney just to stretch the field. So there's weapons. So I think that's your one quarterback. Running back, I didn't really mention sleepers, but I definitely can. So about running back 37 off the board, Chase Brown. I like Chase Brown because Zach Moss was good at the end of 2022 with the Colts, and the first 4 games last year he was great. After that, 3.92 yards per carry, below ordinary, and the Colts had a good run blocking line. They didn't pay him much either. Chase Brown, very limited sample size, but he was very explosive. I think he comes in with half the work, but I think there's room for him to steal more. Outside of that, other running backs you might look for a little bit later. I really think that taking a shot on somebody in the Chargers backfield, like Kimani Vidal, right now they're not talking him up.
Yeah.
But Gus Edwards is 29, and J.K. Dobbins are saying he's fine. But come on, Achilles injury, a former ACL injury. So I think if you go super late, you just want somebody that might have a shot. Ray Davis is another one I like. Ray Davis comes into Buffalo. It was James Cook in his last 5 games, 2.64 yards per carry. All the work he had, you could tell that wore him down. So I think they were an inside grinder. Ray Davis. So the backup running backs in Buffalo were getting 25 to 40 snaps in a lot of games, and there were 16 carries inside the 5. Ray Davis could be ticketed for that. So again, cheap. He'll be like a low-end running back 2 flex type. But again, the work could increase a little bit. So that's right. I went through receivers earlier. I mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson, mentioned Michael Wilson, I mentioned Jermaine Burton. Those are some late players. He goes earlier, but Jackson Smith-Njigba, I believe, is like a breakout player there. He's going in the 7th round of a lot of drafts, but Tyler Lockett really fell off, like 16th percentile yards after catch. He needed 122 targets to only get 800 yards. For him, that just didn't work. Smith-Njigba's trending up. And I think we had all the sleeper positions covered. Yeah, we got them covered.
Yeah, love it. I love it. I love the strategies. Like you said, you do this on a daily basis, just giving great information. That's what it's about. It's put all that information. So I'm gonna So I'm gonna let you go because I know you have to have your show coming up. So I'm looking forward to listening into that. So Jim, I really appreciate the time. Appreciate all the things you got going on. And so if anyone, like I said, if anyone that wants to listen and reach out to you for picks and things like that, let everyone know they can follow you on social media and the SiriusXM show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This was a wonderful opportunity to hang out with you, talk some football, continued success on the show, and look forward to being in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can follow Jim Coventry NFL. You see it there on the screen there. And if you guys are going out to the Fantasy Football Expo, say hi to Jim and everything too. Cool guy, and I really enjoy it. So Rotowire, SiriusXM Fantasy. So check out all his content there as well. So thanks a lot, Jim. Really appreciate it, and many blessings, and best of luck with everything you got going on as well.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right, thank you, and thank you for everyone that tuned in. Really appreciate it. This will be up on, like I said, on all podcasts and social media platforms. Thank you again, and until next time, God bless.